Hiya, thank you for joining us for another Ask Tim event. I'm Matthew Wetherill, Communications and Democracy Officer.
I'm Stephen Brown, Vice President of Education.
And I'm Tim Thornton, I'm Pro Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning.
What we're going to do is we've got some submitted questions that have been given to us by students on problems that they feel are affecting them with their time at university. Tim will just give us a quick recap of the last Ask Tim session and what's been done about it.
Thanks, Matt. It was an interesting session, quite a varied group of questions. I would emphasise, in many cases, I didn't have names from students who put questions, and it's limited my ability to actually follow up in detail and certainly to feedback. And I do hope if you do submit questions in future that you do provide names, because it means I can make the response much more personal. Now, the group of questions that I looked at, they were very interesting. They ranged across things like printing services. I was able to follow up some questions about printing services in a particular school, and I think there was a good outcome from that. There were some questions about timetabling, and I know there's some more questions going to come up today, but I can reassure everybody that the ongoing process to improve the timetable, to remove things like bunching and outlying elements on people's timetables, that is going well, ready for next year, for the year beginning in September. There was a question about childcare, which I was able, in that particular case, to respond to very specifically. There were some questions about the use of blogging tools in one school, which again I was able to follow up specifically, although not to the particular student concerned. It was a productive session.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll jump straight in with the questions. My first question is from a student. We don't have a name, but we do have a Unimail address to get back to them. Why do only students with the highest student finance grants be able to get scholarships? Even though others achieve higher marks and attend more, we can't get £3,000 off tuition fees because you assume that our parents can support us, when in reality they can't.
Obviously, this was the first year of the new finance system. We were working in an environment where the government was changing the rules quite dramatically and quite significantly, in some cases quite late on in the process. We took a decision to allocate a restricted number of scholarships in the simplest way that we could. Now we'll be continuously reviewing that process, but we really had very little sense when we initiated the exercise precisely how it was going to work out. And I'm afraid, although there might appear to be some cases of injustices, I think we did as well as we could in the circumstances. Those students coming in future years, they will be benefiting in different ways from the system.
I have a question here from Shazma Mahmood, and it says, can we please not have late lectures, or can we have the latest lecture finish at 5:15?
Yes, I absolutely agree with Shazna. As you know, we brought in an entirely new timetabling system this year in an attempt to get rid of some of the problems that we had experienced. For example, students with no break over lunchtime, so they weren't able to eat or perform religious observances. We were trying to get away from situations where students had very scattered timetables or very bunched timetables. And we did make huge progress. The proportion of students, for example, with classes on a Wednesday afternoon went down dramatically. I know that was a shared goal for both the student union and the university to clear Wednesday afternoon as far as possible. We think we'll do even better this coming September. And indeed, the things that Shazna mentions, things like outlying lectures very late in the day, they are precisely the kind of things we're now targeting to try and remove. I talked to one of my colleagues about this yesterday. In fact, we're building into the system a preference for morning lectures, which should have the benefit of condensing some of those outlying very late lectures. And I wouldn't like to see lectures that are starting from 5:15 onwards, which I think is one of the things that she mentions in particular.
This is a question from Luke Day, who we've got his student number as well. Gym at Stores Hall unsafe, caused damage to me while working out there. Shouldn't the university make sure that the recommended accommodation provider is safe?
Yeah. Obviously, this is the first I've heard of that particular case that does cause me particular concern. I must say, in general, we have a very good working relationship with the people who run Stores Hall. The university values the relationship it has there, but when I hear a case of somebody being injured, I certainly want to follow that up. So I'm glad, Luke, that we've got your details there. I'm not the individual who has the direct liaison link, but I'll make sure that Andrew McConnell, who's the person who does that, follows up this particular case.
This one has no name, and it simply says, more help getting jobs after uni.
Ah, right, okay. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Our record is already very good. As many people will already know, we're consistently now in the top 10 in the country in terms of the performance of our graduates in getting work. So about 94% of our graduates 6 months after graduation are in work or in further study, and there are very few institutions that achieve that level, that very high level of success. Our careers service is outstanding. It's been recognised nationally for the work that it does. For example, it won in the very recent past the AGCAS, the gold standard, the gold award as the best careers service in the UK. I suspect that whoever this is, unfortunately we don't have a name, we could put you in touch with the careers service, and we could give you good advice on how to progress your search for that career. If you're watching, if you're listening, I could appeal to you to email me, tim.thornton@Hood AC UK, and I will do my best to make that link.
Brilliant. We've got a student number but no name for this, so I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah.
Why aren't there any scholarships or grants for EU international students, except the £500 bursary? It would be very helpful if there was some kind of financial help for students who want to be in unit and achieve the high grades but struggle to do so because of their bills.
Yeah. We try, I'm thinking particularly of students from outside the EU now. We think very carefully about the fees that we set, as we do with the fee that we set here in the UK. We're absolutely determined to ensure that the fee is fair and that it represents good value for the education that students receive. The comparative level of our fee, I think, is well set, and for those students who are coming from outside of the EU, if they compare what they get from the University of Huddersfield for that fee, it's as good value, or not better value, than they'll get anywhere else.
Unfortunately, this one has no name either, and it just says, at some points in my timetable I have 3-hour gaps between lectures. This is really inconvenient as I commute. Can this be sorted as best possible, as a lot of students agree?
Yeah, no, Steve, I mean, with this, as I've already said, this is one of the concerns that we're trying to address now. I think in the past you'd have found that there were students who had 4 or even 5-hour gaps in their timetable, and we've made progress in reducing that. In this particular case, it was a 3-hour gap. I mean, obviously, we perhaps prefer that to be 2. We will do our best to reduce that kind of spacing. I suppose on the positive side, a 3-hour gap is an opportunity to go into the library and to benefit from the resources there. But certainly, if you look at your timetable next year, I think you'll find that the scattering of timetables has been reduced.
Brilliant. Following on slightly from that question, the next one, unfortunately, no name, but more computers available around campus, not just in the library.
Okay, that's interesting. We're actually talking at the moment about the potential to upgrade significantly the IT resource around campus. As you know, as I'm sure students will be realising, we're about to enter a new strategy period for the university. We think our provision of IT is already very good, but we want to make it the best. So there'll certainly be investments that are being made in the future to make sure that there is more access to IT around campus. I say this, I've said it before, I always look at the screens that demonstrate availability of machines in the library as I walk through the Central Services building, and there always are machines available. Now, I go to other universities quite regularly, and I often walk through their equivalent facilities, and it's quite normal there to see students queuing for machines. Now, I've never seen that in the recent past in Huddersfield. Basically, if you need a machine, you can go into the library and you'll find there's a machine there available for you.
Sadly, no name again, and this one says, I'm a music journalism student, and I was wondering why aren't there any opportunities for students to go and see concerts and local bands for free when this is so vital to our course?
Maybe that's something we could talk to the student union about. I guess what we're talking about here is some kind of arrangement that we might make with promoters so that there was an opportunity for some students to go and attend these events. I think I know this possibly only applies to some students, but I know that those who have an opportunity to do a placement, for example, on a journalism type theme, may well be able to benefit from that sort of opportunity anyway, because when they're working for an organisation they may get free access. But we should have a conversation about that.
Something for the future.
Absolutely, yes.
This next question is from Laura McIntyre. Occupational therapy, particularly, if you get a first, you get a fee waiver to do a PhD, but only for full-time. As a vocational course, you'd want to do it part-time if possible. Is that something that we could look at changing?
Yeah. At the moment, this is called the Vice-Chancellor's Initiative. It's very unusual. I don't know of a similar instance anywhere in the UK. If you achieve a first on your degree and you progress to a research degree, then you have a fee waiver. You don't have to pay any fees. It's a fantastic sign of the university's commitment to investment in its students and also in the research that's done here. At the moment, that is restricted to students who are going to progress full-time to PhD. I do understand the point that the student's making about occupational therapy. I'm sure that my colleagues who look after that area, they will look at this in future, but at the moment, specifically, it's about building the capacity in terms of full-time research.
Okay, brilliant.
No name again, and it simply says 50% coursework, 50% exams would be nice.
Okay. Yeah, an interesting question. We don't know the student's name, nor do we know which area they come from. Across campus there are very varied practices, as you would expect in a university that has such a diverse range of subjects being taught. In some cases, the professional bodies or the statutory regulators require us to have a particular mix of coursework and examination on courses, and whatever the university wanted to do in those situations, we would have to apply, comply with whatever the professional statutory body expected. In general, assessment is there in order to test the outcomes of a particular course, the intended outcomes that students should have achieved. And those intended outcomes will tend to influence the type of assessment that is required. I don't know whether this particular student is asking for more exams or fewer, or indeed more coursework or less. Because we don't know what the situation is where they're starting from. Again, I suppose if you make contact with me directly, tim.thornton at HUD AC UK, I would be delighted to pursue this particular case, to ask a question on your behalf and to see whether there's been any recent review of the balance between exam and coursework in a particular area.
And the last question, I believe. No name, unfortunately, again. Why are the University Health Centre appointments so far ahead? There is a waiting time of at least a week. We are supposed to be waiting in the meantime, but cannot return to our normal doctors as we are no longer signed up.
Okay, I understand the point that's being made. I will look into the particular issue about a delay for appointments. Not having any sense of the medical background here, I couldn't really comment at the moment. But as with the other questions, where I haven't got names, what I will usually do is provide the answer to Matt, and then I think, Matt, you post the answers in some way.
Yeah.
So once we've followed that one up about the medical centre, we'll make sure that there's an answer posted so that whether it's this student or others, they can find out what the situation with appointments over there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any more questions, then don't hesitate to send them either to myself at su.comms@hud.ac.uk or to any of the other officers, or to Tim himself, in fact, t.thornton@hud.ac.uk. Our next Ask Tim event is on Monday the 22nd of April at 3:15. So if you've got any questions, please send them in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.